Welcome back, everybody. It's time to move now to the PS4 section of our SCL Mondays. Aggro back with Taco. We've got Freecs T1 up against Bulldog. Freecs have looked phenomenal so far in this fall split.
They've definitely been amping things up just a little bit here. And now that we're coming to a close pretty soon, only a couple weeks left of competition for the SCL, or for PS4, excuse me.
That's right. For all of the SCL, for all of our leagues, it's starting to wind down because we're getting very, very close to DreamHack Atlanta. We're also getting close enough that you should really be concerned about buying your tickets as soon as possible. Make sure you get those. hi-rezexpo.com, November 16th through the 18th. Taco, what if I went to HRX but then decided that I wanted to do something afterwards? You think I can do anything?
I actually have the perfect place for you to go. It's the hi-rez after party that'll be following up to the DreamHack event. Pretty fantastic time. $50 gets you through the door. You can pick up those tickets at hrxafterparty.eventbrite.com.
Oh, well, that's perfect then. Okay, cool. My November 16th through the 18th plans are now set in stone. I will see all of you that are watching currently, because all of you are going to buy tickets, of course. So make sure I'll see all of you there. Every single one of you. If any of you don't buy tickets, then you're letting me down personally, and I hope you understand that.
And if you're going to the after party, just make sure you take the 19th off too.
Yes, take the 19th off. Trust us on that one. It's the right call. Let's go to the standings and see where everyone's sitting. As I mentioned, Freecs T1 have looked great so far. They're sitting at 3-1, but Insomnia right there with them. Remember, only the top team in each region here in the PS4 is coming to the placement, so this game is critical. Bulldog's only at 1-3, so this is a must-win for Freecs.
The pressure's on for Freecs, but the real nail-biters here has got to be for Insomnia, because Bulldog has a chance to play spoiler, but that would also indefinitely end up being a massive win for Insomnia if Freecs were to fall here today. And Freecs, they can't come in anything more than over-prepared.
No, they really cannot. This is crunch time for them for sure. In control on the other side, sitting at 4-0, so they are, well, in control in North America. We'll check in with that region in just a moment. But we're starting in Europe. Freecs T1 looking to go to 4-1 so far, and let's get right to it. Draft ready now for Game 1. Bulldog Esports, all but out of it. You expect, unless there's a four-way tie, depending on who they play in Week 6, there's a potential there for a four-way tie, but that seems incredibly unlikely to me. So Bulldog really just playing to show what they can do for next season almost.
I will admit, though, even in the sets where Bulldogs have taken losses, they have looked pretty good while doing so. It's just that Freecs and Insomnia are just simply better at currently, but that doesn't mean that Bulldogs couldn't have progressed themselves throughout the duration of the fall split. I think as time goes on, these teams become a lot more familiar with each other, their playstyles, player preferences on gods, and Bulldogs might be a little bit more prepared because of that.
I think that's a good point. Bulldog has had a lot of good performances despite their record only showing 1-3. We'll see if they're able to put out one of their better performances here today, and they won't be able to use Athena, Baron, Freya, or Chernobog. That leaves open Erlang, Shen, going to be first pick. Is Erlang that good right now? First pick word?
I think he is. If you play on PlayStation, by all means, go for it, because Erlang, not only does he provide a lot of flexibility, because you never know if he's going to be support, jungle, solo lane, I think that it's just a strong early game pressure pick, and a lot of times with these teams that tend to be coming into these sets as the underdog, no pun intended by the way with the Bulldogs, but it's just a lot easier, I feel, to try and pressure out the early game and look to just keep Freecs locked out of the jungle. And one of the best ways to do that is definitely with an Erlang.
Erlang controls so well. Also has that flex potential, though you expect that'll definitely be in jungle, at least I would, until it's shown otherwise. Cerberus and Rama, a solid 2 picks. That can be for solo, for the Cerberus, or for support. We've actually seen more support Cerberus as of late, and I gotta say, I'm starting to come around on it. It still does relevant damage, but it also has got good peel, good initiation. You don't necessarily need all that solo farm, though it does feel good when you get it.
I think if Cerberus isn't the sole guardian of a composition, then he's perfectly fine in the support role. I think the only times we really ever see him struggling in that aspect is whenever there is a lack of frontline. I think he does need to be supplemented or supported by another guardian or warrior of some sort that can afford to make it so that Cerberus can prioritize damage numbers as opposed to having to go pure peel for his team.
Absolutely. 2 mages banned away here by Freecs. They go Agni and Raijin, whereas 2 hunters banned away by Bulldog simultaneously. Bakasura picked up here by Freecs means that I'm looking at a potential, well, now that Bellona's there, I was going to say, you put this Terra solo, pick up a Fafnir and a hunter, Here, that would have been a sick attack speed composition, but instead, they want to limit some of the attacks coming out of Bulldog, specifically those autos. Bellona Scourge with the disarm does that beautifully. Erlang and Ram, basically all they do is auto attack, so I do like this Bellona selection.
I'm a little skeptical, though, about this Bakasura and how well it's going to perform. Positioning, without a doubt, is going to be crucial here for Freecs' jungler. If that does end up being a Bakasura for the jungle, which I'm assuming because of the Bellona pick again, but it's just... Baka has a lot of interrupt to try and deal with here. I think Cerberus and Erlang both really strong picks against the Bakasura to see Freecs willingly taking this Baka into those choices. It does surface some questions of, are Freecs maybe a little overconfident here?
Plus, Chaac now with the attack speed slow on the Rainstorm. Pretty good pick for Bulldog. Is that enough to sway your vote? Make sure you get it in Mixer chat right now. That final selection, Cupid, we've seen so much Cupid, and it's been so consistently good that I don't think I can rag on it much longer. I mean, everyone is doing well with it when they pick it up. I don't know. I guess it's really good.
Cupid is just a god that I think some who haven't played against him in some time forget about how strong the Fields of Love actually can be, but a sprint and just moderating how far up you choose to step in a lane early on should prevent a lot of that Heart Bomb poke damage.
Atonement, actually, the hunter here for Freecs T1. We haven't seen a whole lot of Freecs. A lot of their games have been offline, and Atonement, a veteran of the European Xbox scene, seems to have moved over to PlayStation, and just based on the team record alone, doing pretty darn well for himself. Excited to see what Freecs are able to do, and chat thinking that they'll take the victory, though not by a lot. It seems like chat seemed to like Bulldog's composition by quite a bit.
Bulldog have been, like we mentioned at the very start, they have come incredibly close in winning certain sets that I think most people would have just written off from the very start, but they do like to give up a fight, and I don't think that this is going to be as easy as some might have originally assumed up against the Freecs. I also like what this dual lane is doing, though, by having tossed that Cerberus in the dual lane here, much like what we were expecting after seeing that Chaac pick solidified for Bulldog, but AC on Wormy has a great chance here to poke out AtonementSmite, and that's probably the most, that's probably where he'll attend most of his Ghastly Breath and the Paralyzing Spits towards, just because the more damage you get against a Cupid early on, the more he has to utilize his mana, burnouts on those hearts for the heals, and if mrsacx isn't eating them, then that just means that Atonement's expending even more mana to heal himself.
I will say, maybe it's just the old school COD kid in me, but AC1 Wormy is a hilarious name. I think that's very funny. I don't know.
You think that's what he was going for?
I think so. It sounds a lot like AC130. We'll see if he gets, what was that, an 11 kill streak? I think so. Back in the day. We'll see if he's able to get there. If he goes 11-0, then it may as well have been a tactical nuke, because this game would be over for Bulldog if that were the case. Well, I have my doubts we'll see 11 in the kill department for Wormy.
There's nothing worse than a Cerberus that gets a chance to snowball, though.
Oh, I know.
The amount
even
of
in
damage.
Even in support, he does so much damage, and the slow on Ghastly Breath means that you can't get away from the damage either.
I enjoy.
No, but you certainly wish you could.
Yeah.
Raiden won't really seem to mind, because this is a laning phase that I also think that Bulldog should definitely run. mrsacx and Atonement know that they're not really prioritizing pressure in dual lane early on. I think they just rather focus on confirming their buffs, making sure that Bulldog duo doesn't get a chance to invade Freecs' jungle. It does mean sacrificing a little bit of the creep gold, because most of the time the waves are going to be hitting the tower line, but after around level 6, 7, that's basically the period where mrsacx should start to rotate typically, and then AtonementSmite, he can probably hold down the 1v1 just fine against Raiden.
Atonement, whenever he gets in those 1v1s, it's basically why you're picking Cupid, is to go in the 1v1 against Ram. It's a very popular counter matchup, because Ram has trouble getting away from the Cupid, often has to trade ultimate for ultimate in those fights in lane. But it's not just the Ram that gets shut down by this Fields of Love. I think it's very good against Erlang Shen, who's got no innate CC immunity. He actually picks up beads just because of that, I believe. It's good against Janus without his ultimate. Can't go through the portals because of the cripple. seems pretty good, but Arya's coming over to try and shut down this Cupid early on, potentially. No blink out of anyone on Bulldog, and a stray pin doesn't find the home.
Plasma knew that Erlang was coming, and that's why we see Plasma still lurking in the jungle, although I'd imagine that Arya was sure to alert his team, having spotted out the Bakasura and coming into this stare down. That's why we see Wormy and Raiden choosing to back off just a little bit here. Not really looking to go too aggressive. Before the 5-minute mark, I mean, this is prime time for the first jungle gank.
Heart Bomb onto Raiden, lots of damage, stun there as well, beads used, but it doesn't matter. First blood goes the way of Atonement, second blood goes the way of Plasma. Plasma's patience pays off on that duo side. He gets 1 assist and 1 kill. Actually didn't get the assist on the first blood. Atonement got that alongside mrsacx, but still worthwhile for Plasma.
But when a gank is that telegraphed, you almost have to wonder why Bulldog's duo didn't just fall back to their T1 tower entirely. There's no reason to risk being even moderately out of position, because it's hard to keep track of whether or not the Heart Bomb is going to actually stun. That is based off of the auto attacks from Atonement, whether he has them fully stacked for his passive.
Good rotation in from Arya, saves his solo laner DaveJr. In fact, Dave trying to turn it around, but eats a full bludgeon. Doesn't matter. He calculated that nicely. Dave ends up getting the kill. Arya certainly there to assist. Cynortas has had pretty good control of this lane, though Dave has been trading pretty heavily. Chaac, it's pretty good. I think kind of flown under the radar right now as one of the better warrior solo laners in a meta where not a lot of warriors are being picked.
He's incredibly safe is the big thing too about Chaac. Up against a Bakasura, it can be very easy for a lot of solo laners to find themselves out of position and then just chased into oblivion with the hasten katana, but that'll be a little bit more complicated for Plasma to do against Dave because of that attack speed slowed that's followed with Chaac as long as he's in that range stance, not to mention the fact that he's also receiving healing at the same exact time. And then there's a temporary mild silencing knockup from his ultimate that can be a great disengage tool.
Whenever Bakasura solo was a big deal, Chaac solo was the answer in lane. AC1 Wormy leaps up and over Regurgitate, stays nice and safe, flies over the Regurgitate if you want to keep the AC130 puns doing, which, in case you couldn't tell, I do. I do want to keep those going. Arya wants to fight on these left side mid harpies. Irritant purification beats are already down through space and time from GunTeR Warrior is going to land, and so does the clap from the Unstable Vortex. Good kill there out of the mid lane mage. That meets him at 1-0.
Letting GunTeR have this Janus pick too might have been an awful mistake from Freecs' end of things, but hold that thought though, because Plasma on the retreat right now, going to jump over AC1 Wormy, but the Stingent Torm are going to bring him back in. No, Purification Beads are burned out instead. I was waiting for that Paralyzing Spit for the last hit.
Already used it to set up that stun in the first place, I think, but good aggression there between Wormy and Arya, and that results in a speed buff invade onto Plasma. When you start falling behind as Bakasura early, it's not going to be a good game for you. Baka still within 100 gold, so not a big deal for Plasma, but it's something that he definitely needs to keep in mind.
Losing buffs, though, as a Bakasura, top 3 worst feelings easily. A god that you would assume is taken because of how much pressure he can put onto jungle buffs, and yet Plasma has had very little opportunity to even look towards Bulldog's jungle farm. Instead, he's been focusing on just confirming all of Freecs' farm, but now that Bulldog have control of his speed buff timer, I almost want to see Bulldog repeatedly invade him there.
Dave does have lane control on that right-hand side. He's pushed Cynortas on her tower for a while now, so maybe that is the call. Cynortas has finished off the Berserker shield, so that'll give him a lot more sustain. See, as soon as he switches into the Scourge stance, Dave has to back it up. Cynortas able to take a bit of control, so maybe there is some potential for invades on the right-hand side onto the speed buff, but man, still, even when you've got a small lead, invading Bakasura seems so risky to me because he can just easily take the buff away from you.
But then you have GunTeR Warrior on this Janus pick that can try to portal you away. In that case, it wouldn't have been the same exact situation because GunTeR did expend that through space and time to put a big whack onto Irritant and confirm the kill onto the Soul. I do think that GunTeR is probably one of the best PS4 Januses that we've had a chance to see so far, though. Even
Agreed.
Making the highlight reel for our intro video.
That's right. He definitely has impressed on this Janus selection, and that's a big part of a new league is seeing these players and identifying and figuring out their comfort picks and which ones are comfort picks that you have to be scared of and which are comfort picks that you're okay with them taking. I don't think anyone should be giving GunTeR Janus easily in these drafts, as speed buff invade successful and the pressure goes onto GunTeR Warrior. Though no ultimate from Plasma, GunTeR still has that through space of time and might need it because Dave and Wormy are in some serious trouble. Through space of time comes through and hits 3 people! Irritant goes down first. Cynortas is on the run, and Dave might try and close that gap. I don't know if he'll be able to get there in time. A little axe throw does zone away. Torrent there as well, but no follow-up damage. Cynortas survives. It's a 1-for-1 Wormy for Irritant, but remember, Bulldog got the speed, and that was what we're talking about. That was an incredible ultimate from GunTeR. Provides portals, hits opposition. I mean, that was perfect.
He'd been lining it up the moment that he portaled away from that fight. He wanted a chance to reset his own field of view. That way, he could choose which point of attack would be best to approach from, and he found his opening. Freecs, the moment they all grouped up, looking to try and finish collapsing onto Wormy, they just get obliterated for it.
For that same reason, I'd like to see Plasma actually commit Regurgitate on the GunTeR Warrior. Sure, he can beads and portal away, but he's most likely to just ultimate away, understanding that that engagement is not going to go well most likely anyways. And then that doesn't end up happening. You can see that maybe Bulldog are able to, or excuse me, Freecs T1 are able to take that fight a little bit better. Plasma's Regurgitates so far have not been particularly impressive. And in the early game, Regurgitate should really be a free kill more often than not.
Especially when you factor in the cripple effect
right
afterwards. It's just so difficult to try and run away from, and a lot of times, even after you use the purification beads, you're so slowed already that they can close the gap no problem.
Great damage there coming from Wormy and Arya. 2-man pin, 2-man knockup. Wormy there with that follow-up damage, and that'll force Irritant back to base. Bulldog gonna try and take this opportunity and go for gold. It's already down to about 3/4 HP, but Plasma's lurking and Cynortas is on the way. That's enough to send a Bulldog packing.
I almost wanted to see Bulldogs commit far enough so that Freecs look to challenge them on the objective, but this does give time some really important openings to look for the speed buff invade one more time. And it doesn't seem like Dave's going to be successful. No, instead, Irritant and Cynortas going to be able to defend, but through space and time is going to bail Dave right on out of there, and the rest of Bulldog looking to collapse.
But now GunTeR may have bit off a little bit too much. Portal right on time. Easy for the Janus player. No worries whatsoever for GunTeR. Supernova not quite there, and Atonement comes in, but a good sprint from Wormy gets him out of Fields of Love and the Heart Bomb. Wormy does end up falling, ultimately to Atonement's rotation. And with Atonement here, Freecs going to pull the Pyromancer. Raiden has his snipes, but seems a little bit too gun-shy on going in for it. Pyro down for Freecs T1.
I think Raiden should have pressured the T1 tower and made sure to strip that one away. Everyone from Freecs was so distracted by confirming the Pyromancer that I doubt anybody would have interfered with Raiden on that objective. Instead, though, Bulldog gonna maybe need to pay a little bit more mind as to what's actually still taking place in the jungle, because Freecs, they're still 5-man roaming, 4-man roaming, excuse me. But Raiden with the Astral Barrage trying to steal the Gold Fury away.
Oh, not quite. Freecs get the gold. They won't get any more kills, but that's still 2 big objectives. Freecs were on the back foot in this game not long ago, and just like that, they turn it around and are slightly ahead now. This is the mark of a veteran team, it looks like to me, Taco. A team that weathered the storm early, didn't panic, and really, in my mind, that just Atonement's rotation was perfect.
I think the only member who's really all that far behind on Freecs is Irritant. This sole 3-level disparity between the Janus, that is massive. It doesn't even really make all that much sense why GunTeR is this much further ahead than Irritant. Seems like the Soul maybe needing to prioritize farming a little bit more efficiently here, and that was actually the next topic I wanted to address, because Plasma, despite having lost 2 speed buffs early on and a couple of other global contested farm like the mid harpies and back harpies, he still managed to hang even with Arya And I can't help but feel like that should have never been permitted either.
I think it's GunTeR Warrior taking Arya's farm. We just saw him portal in and take those XP harpies. I think that's been happening pretty regularly. It's easy to do as Janus because you clear him so quickly and don't lose anything in the mid lane because you're so quick. But it does take away from your jungler's farm, whereas Irritant has been sharing lots of waves. Here is where it becomes a kind of a catch-22, where you don't really have anything to do as Irritant, because now you've lost your mid-tier 1, you're already behind, so you need some help, you need some protection there by way of mrsacx or by Plasma, but that means that you're losing solo waves, and you're going to fall far behind as is. No matter what you do, you're basically losing farm in comparison to GunTeR Warrior, who's able to free farm pretty easily, consistently solo red, you get the back harpies. There's a whole lot going right for Bulldog's mid laner. And Irritant, in my mind, just should kind of try and weather the storm. No reason to... you're not going to catch up to Janus at this rate. Just try and take the team fights and stay safe. Don't fall even further behind.
The state of paranoia, though, that Freecs have to be experiencing as Through Space and Time comes barreling down that red buff one more time. Cynortas is going to be forced out of the Eagles rally, however, after being spotted out by Arya and Dave. And you could, I was just about to say it. It's so much paranoia for Freecs because you never know the second that one member of Bulldogs approaches you, is there a Through Space and Time that's going to follow with the other 4 members of the team right behind it? The
way GunTeR's playing right now, the answer is almost always yes. And that forces Irritant back to base again. Misses another wave in mid. And that's how a lead like this really develops. Irritant going for a cheaper build. Looks like it's going to be a Demonic or a Hastened. Both fairly cheap items, but from behind, this build does not do a whole lot. You really need to be even or ahead to really make him feel that auto attack damage.
Meanwhile, on the other hand, GunTeR heavily prioritizing cooldowns on the Janus. So you'll know that every single one of those portals is just going to be spammed for maximum trolling capacity here out of Bulldog's mid laner. And I want to see GunTeR playing as aggressive as possible. The more time that Freecs spend chasing a Janus around the map, the more time it gives Bulldog to look towards taking an objective or stripping away jungle farm, possibly even taking down a couple of towers. Split push Janus is considered dangerous for a reason. It's because you can't ever really catch up to him, and they typically tend to get away with it.
The one thing I will say, despite GunTeR's, without a doubt, near unparalleled success on Janus in the PS4 League so far, is that he does tend to get a little bit over-aggressive at times and position in ways that can usually, get out of, but sometimes getting out of the situation doesn't mean that it was okay to be there in the first place, and that is something that I think Bulldog's mid laner needs to remedy in this game and in future games, especially if Bulldog are going to try and turn it around and force the 3-way tie and come to LAN. Again, a tall task, but one that is possible. Would need help, of course, from playing Ducks as well, but these teams definitely have to watch out for GunTeR's Janus moving into next year, regardless of the outcome of this fall split.
I am surprised, though, with how many priority ban picks towards player preferences we see, that teams still allow GunTeR Warrior to have this Janus time and time again.
He's done so well so far. Level 16. Near the highest in the game. Only Raiden ahead. Through Space and Time. Doesn't hit anything this time. Good little sidestep, but a 3-man ultimate from Dave forces back Freecs. Atonement is going to drop the ultimate. Dave very, very close to falling, but Arya is the first one out. Stygian Torment doesn't do a whole lot, but GunTeR Warrior's Unstable Vortex certainly does. Raiden is getting a tier 1 on the left, and Pyromancer, who cares about that? Let's go for fire. Problem is, Freecs are awfully low.
Oh, no.
And Wormy and GunTeR are lurking.
mrsacx, had he waited just a second longer, would have died to the ring of fire outside of it. Freecs will confirm the fire giant. Nice zone away from Cynortas to keep GunTeR Warrior out from the fire giant pit. And same for Wormy, was not able to get past the likes of Freecs just yet. And they will continue to chase down this T1 tower. Dave and Arya have just about respawned here and can look for the T2 defense, but it would probably be unwise here from Freecs to continue pushing. They'll just take what they've already gotten and back to base, happy to spend that gold.
Freecs so close to losing that Fire Giant. GunTeR Warrior's Unstable Vortex put it to 80. I mean, literally an auto attack away from stealing it. And that's the risk that you take. I mean, there's great reward. Freecs now get a tier 1 and have Fire Giant for quite some time and have the opportunity to get some towers off the map. Good job by Bulldog to make sure that Gold Fury isn't among those objectives that Freecs should be able to confirm now. But GunTeR Warrior so close to stealing that away. But here is where the Soul Pick, even though it has been behind all game, is now going to look really good because Fire Giant's on Irritant, and the tower siege potential is phenomenal from this comp.
Irritant also going for that Rings pseudo-hunter type build on the Soul, so you combine that alongside of AtonementSmite with this Cupid, and these structures probably won't be standing for much longer here, aggro. There's only 5 towers left on the map anyway in Bulldog's favor, and I highly doubt that's going to remain the same pretty shortly because Freecs already making moves down the mid lane. I don't expect to see Bulldogs making any sort of last stand defenses underneath the T1s. Those will probably be reserved for whenever all the T2 action begins taking place.
Could be Telkheim's, Shaman's, or Hastened Ring coming from Irritant. Just depends on what he feels like. Around the back comes Arya, 2-man taunt. Decent damage, but Fields of Love zones everybody away. No one mezzed quite yet, though. As tower gone. Blink forward from Wormy. Not going to find a whole lot. No, excuse me. That's 3 pulled in from Stygian Torment, but Cynortas is doing a good job of keeping the front line busy, whereas Plasma's 2v1ing on the back. Now he might have to back it up, but Dave backed up the hard way. Cynortas finds Arya as well. Dave and Arya again end up falling early on in a fight. GunTeR going to fire off through space and time. Hits 1. Unstable Vortex. Good damage on top of it, but still not enough to force Freecs off this Phoenix. mrsacx falls to Wormy, but Raiden looks likely to be next. Indeed, Plasma finds his second. Plasma's going to find a double kill, but Atonement did fall around the back. I believe that was GunTeR who made it happen. There is absolutely no chance that Freecs can end right there. There is just no way that was ever going to happen.
They thought about it for a hot minute. Irritant wanted to. I think that was Cynortas or Plasma, someone talking their mid laner out of the kill, or out of the attempt to end.
Yes, that was ambitious to say the least. Towers in both side lanes, and Phoenix is up. And you've got half a minion wave against a level 19 Janus. I don't think so. That's not going to happen. Who can do that to you? Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, Irritant's just going to run for the hills off of that one. Losing half your health to an unstable Vortex, by the way. Usually not the best way to want to keep fighting back into that. Although I will say that as soon as GunTeR uses that unstable Vortex portal through to try and get up close and personal, that's where I really want to see Freecs try to turn and burn. The Unstable Vortex is really all that Janus has in terms of damage, and I feel like not enough players and teams recognize that a Janus expending his cooldowns means you can definitely try to burst him out.
You're saying Janus only has 1 damaging ability, so it's okay that Unstable Vortex does a lot of damage?
No. I don't think that was anything of what I said. Well, I said that after he uses his cooldown,
right,
then you should be
because he only has 1 damaging ability. Right.
No, there's like 3.
No,
but through space and time hasn't connected every time.
Right. Well,
and neither is the portal.
Right, but
GunTeR
you could also use
the portal.
I mean, I'm talking about.
I feel like there's damage numbers underneath the abilities because they do damage.
Okay, how many damaging abilities would you say Anher has in most team fights?
In most team fights, 2.
2. Right.
How many does Janus have? 3.
1, maybe 2. I will give you through space and time. There's no Portal and Anher leap.
And it's on like a 4-second cooldown.
Portal and Anher leap. Anher hits you like a truck for his auto attacks. ADC is mid on easy mode. Anyways, Portal is literally the same thing as Anher jump. It's slow. It's great CC.
Yeah, it also happens to get you or any of your teammates outside of any area of danger at any given time because the ability is on like a 6-second cooldown.
Just like Anher leap.
That's not Anher leap. That's like half the cooldown of an Anher leap.
Well, if Anher built full CDR, it'd be really low cooldown.
Yeah, and then those auto attacks, my guy, what are you doing with those afterwards?
Not a whole lot. Just saying that They are similar abilities. If you wouldn't on-her leap on someone, you probably shouldn't portal on someone, is my general rule of thumb.
Yeah, we'll tell that to the Januses in every single one of our ranked games.
Well, I'm not impressed with those Januses most of the time. Not impressed with Raiden's survival because he doesn't have one. Atonement catches out the Ram. Beads were there, but Raiden still falls. And that's why you pick the Cupid, to bully on the characters that determine or that are really reliant on their movement abilities.
That pick could not have come at a worse time, though, for Bulldog. It seemed like the team really wanted to try and contest here, and now Plasma looking to keep Bulldog zoned away even further from this Fire Giant, but he'll end up falling, bit off a little bit more than he could chew there, quite literally, and now Dave has an opportunity to try and rush down this Fire Giant, but it's just too little too late. Freecs still managed to confirm it.
Surprised that GunTeR is still holding on to through space and time. I feel like as soon as you kill Plasma, drop shipping your front line into the Fire Giant pit is the way to go. It's so hard to zone a Janus from an objective because he can just get his team through the walls, and they kind of let Cynortas zone the entire enemy team after Plasma goes down for very little investment.
That's worth it.
Yeah, of course.
Regurgitate for the rest of your team, getting Fire Giant, including your Soul and Cupid, and under little to no pressure at all. That's exactly the kind of situation that Freecs want to continue replicating, and I'm right there with you. GunTeR also probably a little bit disappointed with not deciding to commit there. I think it was that split second of hesitation that ended up costing Bulldog their chance to contest.
And it's funny because we were just saying earlier, at least I was, that GunTeR often a little bit too liberal with his positioning and just finds himself in bad spots a lot of the time to try and cool it down. Well, he cools it down, and the one time it felt like he needed to heat up. Regardless, Freecs T1 now have wiped the map of all Bulldog towers. This Fire Giant not enhanced. It went down pre-25 minutes, so could be worse for Bulldog. There is a silver lining there. Silver lining for Freecs T1 is that despite not having their Bakasura with Fire Giant, he does have his relics, and all the relics available for Freecs T1 outside of the lone TP for Cynortas.
Baka in general with the Hasted Katana can also be really hard to prevent from split pushing a Phoenix. That's why we see Arya trying his best to zone away Plasma, or at least make sure that he clears out the creep waves. That way Plasma, if he does want to commit onto this Phoenix, is going to have to expend the Regurgitate, but by doing so, will probably proc aggro of the Firebird in return, and that'd make things just a little too complicated.
Raiden under siege now by Cynortas, and Cynortas will be zoned away. Good peel from Wormy with the stun, but there's the Fields of Love. Dave locked in and knocked down. Plasma gonna get it with the Regurgitate auto attacks as Arya trying to go mano-a-mano with the Bakasura and doing a pretty good, darn good job of it. In fact, Wormy gonna come in and make sure that it goes their way, and the Phoenix didn't take a single lick of damage during all of that.
It's like Freecs were so distracted by what was happening with their jungler, they forgot that they still need to attack the right-hand Phoenix if they want to bring this objective down to begin with. Now Raiden, alongside of the other three remaining members from Bulldog, have a very good chance here of holding on.
Wormy has the Heart Bomb, gets stunned, but not a lot of damage coming from it. Lots of damage coming from GunTeR Warrior's Portal and Unstable Vortex combination. That'll force Freecs T1 back. This is a composition that does it exceptionally well when it gets a chance to hit Phoenixes, but they just they didn't do that second part, the hitting of the Phoenix.
And it's weird because I honestly do not think that Bulldog have all that fantastic of a Phoenix defense. Janus is probably one of the worst mages to try and defend on these Phoenixes, because if you miss that through space and time, normally that's the end of the team fight right then and there.
Yep.
As Janus also has a much harder time clearing out those creep waves whenever they're shoving into the Phoenix area. You have to invest the Unstable Vortex for that, and without that ability, then Freecs should have had some time, I think, to commit a little bit further into that right-hand Phoenix. I think that Plasma might just be going a little bit too deep for the rest of his team.
Plasma's tried to out-ultimate Arya multiple times now. It happened when he was quote-unquote zoning for Fire Giant. Very recently it happened there as well, and with the damage mitigation of 9 turns Blessing, with how much damage Arya Cruz already has, the Nemean Lion, and the burst heal that comes from that ultimate, I just don't think Plasma should be trying to go for that trade. He just hasn't won in the last two. I don't think he's winning now.
Especially now with a Nemean Lion built and no lifesteal whatsoever for Plasma. Sure, Nemean isn't going to be as awful to reef like damage back with this late into the match, but it still has somewhat of an impact when there's 0 lifesteal whatsoever for the Bakasura. And his only sustain is just to eat the creep itself, but that's not going to be available to you if you're past the enemy Phoenix lines.
Also take some time out of your auto attacks, right? I mean, you're losing autos by using Eat Minion. It's not a long animation, but there is an animation involved.
Oof. Atonement loses half of his health to the unstable vortex. Yeah, looks hard, aggro.
Yeah, it is, Taco. Clearly. Just ask your ranked Janus's. It's tough. It's not easy to be landing those unstable vortexes. Imagine if you could only auto attack once every 6 seconds, but it would guaranteed crit. That's unstable vortex. It's also AoE, by the way.
You could do that with a poison star.
See? Except you could attack 3 times every second, basically.
Okay, I take that back. It depends on your life RNG as a person.
Sure.
Of course.
Sure.
We've seen instances where players are 4 for 4 on their autos for crits.
Right.
With just the poison star.
Right. That is not me, by the way.
Not me either.
Dave stunned. GunTeR provides a portal, but Dave has plans of his own. Earth and Fury comes out mostly defensively for mrsacx. It only lands onto a couple members of Bulldog. Good double stun. Chases beads away from Raiden. But Freecs don't commit to that kill. Forced out a couple ultimates, or at least one, but the Chaac ult for the Terra ult is certainly a win for Bulldog. Terra ultimate, one of the best in the game. Chaac ultimate, not so much. Now Freak going right back towards fire. Arya has that ult and the blink, but Cynortas going to keep him in combat. Blink forward by Plasma, and he's hitting the tank. AC1 Wormy totally fine with that as Arya's around the backside through space and time. Comes through, hits Atonement. He's down to 1 shot, and Arya will take care of him from there. Arya also able to escape. Irritant loses his life to the Chaac ult that time around. Raiden able to kill Cynortas, and 3 kills go the way of Bulldog. Freecs T1 get decimated around fire.
Freaks are just lining up for the slaughter at this point from GunTeR warriors through space and time. Atonement didn't even know what hit him. He wasn't even looking in that direction. They were all just running side by side, looking to chase down Arya or Dave, and it just did not pan out well for Freecs in the slightest. Not only that, but that entire engagement just felt awkward at the start. Yeah. The moment that Plasma invested the Regurgitate onto AC1 Wormy, that was all the time in the world that Bulldog needed to realize we can initiate here.
Definitely a bad engagement there from Plasma, and that's really what sets up Freecs T1 for the lack of success. Not a lot of time left on these respawn timers, so Bulldog not going for a Phoenix, instead just trying to get as many towers off the map as possible. With Raiden backing, it looks like they'll leave the mid tier 2 up and standing. Arya comes over and gives the left side a little love tap. That's all that was necessary. GunTeR Warrior, man. Is it to the point where even if Freecs T1 win, GunTeR should be on the MVP poll?
Probably.
Because no one from Freecs is having like a huge game. It's really just been GunTeR that stood out over everybody else.
GunTeR just keeps killing them or putting them into a killable threshold where it takes a single Erlang pin to confirm it. And that's the problem here for Freecs, is that they just don't have enough vision. Underneath these Fire Giant contest points, you need to have wards spammed everywhere so you can get a better idea of where this Janus ultimate might be approaching you from, and that just hasn't been the case for Freecs. They've been blindsided every single time so far in the past couple of engagements because GunTeR's just permitted to do so.
It's also not just the ward vision to see the Janus himself, but if you've got good ward vision, you can see the portals being created on the minimap. That's usually a good indication the Janus ult is coming, and a way to avoid it without being able to see it necessarily, but it's tough to keep your eye on your minimap all the time in the midst of a late-game teamfight.
But Freecs now in a position to very well lose this game. This is Bulldog with a Fire Giant team and a late-game composition. in a sense that I would probably favor over that of Freecs.
Can't disagree with you. Rom and Janus together is a lot. Cupid, not so much, especially with this Heartseeker that Atonement has. Great in the early game, but by this point, you got to sell it.
There's no reason to take Heartseeker to begin with Cupid. He just doesn't get enough benefit off of the proc. At most, your Heart Bomb will deal a little bit more damage, but everything else, Fields of Love, is that the only other ability that you're really going to be able to channel this with? And even then, there's no real benefit to that. Kind of just a waste of an item slot.
Completely agree with you. If you have Heartseeker and you miss your Heart Bomb, you have very little damage throughout the rest of that team fight until Heart Bomb comes back up. And that's the case normally, yes, but if that's an Odysseus bow, your auto attacks are doing a lot at least.
A lot of hunters are getting baited by this Heartseeker. It's a new item. It looks like it might be fun to mess around with, but you got to give a little bit of thought process as to what you're going to be proccing that item effect with. And Cupid, just not one of the go-tos for it.
No. Sign me up for Heartseeker Neath. I think Heartseeker Neath is very good.
Probably the best hunter with it.
Yeah. Medusa, I think, can be good, depending on the build path.
Chiron to a certain extent.
Chiron can be good.
Uller even.
Neath, not so much. Arya and Plasma once again going 1v1. Once again, Arya looks like he's getting the better end. That was Beads on Plasma. Still has Regurgitate, though. Arya forcing in underneath this Phoenix. It actually pulls mrsacx over. And even that isn't working out too well. Arya, Beads gets him out of that Regurgitate damage, whereas on this left-hand side, Dave is getting absolutely shredded. Dave down. Good shots there coming from Irritant, and Raiden actually put Irritant very low. Through space and time, of course, is going to kill Irritant on his waltz back to base. Speed it up for you, why don't you? I'll just throw you into the fountain right away. But that seems to be it, at least for the moment. Bulldog, despite getting 1-for-1, or not much longer 1-for-1, now a 2-for-1. What is Raiden doing there?
Dying.
With GunTeR by red, and your jungler and your support by the enemy speed, why are you there?
A lot of questions that need answers, but Raiden took note of AtonementSmite building that Heartseeker and said, I'll match you with the Atalanta's bow.
Okay, Atalanta's bow is good.
Atalanta's bow is good, but not if you're going to end up selling it. Or selling, I believe it was an Ichable for this item. This late into the match, Atalanta's bow is best for pressuring early on because it gives you that substitute Fatalis effect. It makes it feel like you're able to keep up a lot better with the opponent, but that's for the early game. As a 6-item slotted ROM, there are so many better items. There's an Aussie that you could go for. There's Odysseus bow
I think
you
Odysseus
could go for.
bow is better.
Both of these hunters just limiting themselves.
I agree. I think Atalanta's is under purchased, and I think it is a good item. But if you are team fighting 5v5, almost no item in the game matches the DPS of Odysseus bow. It's the most attack speed you can get on an item, and it spreads that damage throughout the team fight so much that you're giving yourself AoE damage as a hunter. I feel like if you're going for a pen build, and Titan's Bane included means it's a pen build, then I think you are doing yourself a disservice by not going Odysseus bow. I can't disagree with you there.
With the way that these teams, both sides have been struggling.
Look at that heart bomb damage, though. That was nuts. Holy.
It actually looks like it took a significant chunk of his health.
It wasn't.
That was the song.
Yeah, it wasn't just that. Arya again trying to fight Plasma 1v1. Arya's ultimate trading with that of Plasma. Arya having a bit more trouble this time. Beads are up in time, and Plasma doesn't continue the chase through space and time. There, and it hits Atonement, and so does the Unstable Vortex. GunTeR is doing it all. Also, someone should check Cupid's diaper, because I think there's a through space and time tracker attached to Atonement in this game. Cynortas up down because he's a solo laner, and that's what they do. Raiden's able to get that kill. Irritant nearly finds the kill with Supernova on a 2 members, but Freecs can't quite get it done again.
But just like that, Bulldog are now in a position to take this Fire Giant for pretty much no contest. There's no chance that Freecs are going to want to risk any of their other members dying, because if they do, that could very well spell an easy-to-claim Phoenix for free there from Bulldog, possibly even the game if they all were to wipe. And Arya is just setting it up time and time again for GunTeR. The perfect vision. Atonement just thinking that he was going to be helping out his jungler there for a second. Ends up not only wasting out on his ultimate, but then just getting smacked by what is that? His 4th, 5th through space and time that is hit him in the face.
That's insane. And Atonement's Aegis was up in 3 seconds whenever he got killed by that unstable vortex. That is the pure definition of feels bad in the mid lane.
Feels really good to be GunTeR, though.
Sure does. Anytime you get to play Janus, it feels real good.
But this, even if Freecs manage to win this game, GunTeR should never be allowed to play Janus again.
You're right. I mean, why would you give him this god that is clearly working so well? And it's not like you feel horrible banning Janus, because when he has games like this, there's no other god GunTeR could pick and go, I got you now. You know, you banned Janus, so now I get to play this other god that lets me snipe you from across the entire map. It's only Janus that gets it done. And GunTeR trying to get it done here for Bulldog and really put a damper on Freecs T1. Blink forward from Arya, straight onto Atonement. Atonement already down to about half, beads down for the Hunter. Plasma's regurgitate again, does very little to nothing. As snipes coming through from Raiden, GunTeR, there's no way. Okay, just barely clips Plasma, but doesn't actually hit him. Looked like it was going to. Irritant knocked up, big damage, triple portal from GunTeR, which of course turns into a double kill. Left side Phoenix is still up though, and Atonement's back now with Fields of Love. Dave trying to tank it up as an unstable vortex brings Atonement below half yet again. Raiden has to use the beads because of the crushing earth coming from mrsacx. It's taken Bulldog a while, but they've got a 5v3 for 50 seconds.
And without regurgitate, Plasma is all but useless on this Phoenix defense. Can't afford to go in onto the back line because his auto attack chain will just be interrupted rapidly by Wormy or Dave. And if he stays underneath this Phoenix, well, he's just there to absorb the blows, and I'm not sure that this Phoenix can even afford to absorb any more blows. No, in fact, Raiden, just a couple of in-hats, going to manage to take that one down as soon as that next creep wave came into play. Now Dave taking at the mid Phoenix. mrsacx going to get stunned out by a nice paralyzing spit. Backline is being aggressed on by Arya, but mrsacx just nowhere left to run. Dave's going to make sure to take it
Warrior! Oh, nearly hit Atonement again! But mid Phoenix down, and they've got 10 seconds until these two members respawn. Raiden gets a quick double set up by AC1 Wormy, and Bulldog able to upset Freecs T1 in game 1.
I don't think Insomnia could be any happier than that moment right there. Huge blow for Bulldogs to get that victory upset over Freecs.
I'll bet you Insomnia was like, yo, Freecs, you know, we're doing really well, but there's a big game for you against Bulldog. We're going to give you a heads up. GunTeR can't play Janus. Just let him play it. He won't do anything. If you guys are voting for anyone but GunTeR Warrior, report yourselves, because you're trolling. This is clearly GunTeR Warrior. We don't even need to put up the poll. It's easy. It's easy wins.
No, we're good to skip the poll. There's no poll necessary when one guy just so heavily dictates the entire pacing of a match.
GunTeR is your MVP. Don't need to hear it from production at all. I'm just assuming, because if they pick anyone else, then I won't respect it, and I will still continue to say that GunTeR Warrior was your MVP. As we get the GunTeR Warrior highlights ready, because there's no one else we could get, there is literally a 0% chance he gets Janus.
It's going to turn...
Right? Like 0.
It's GunTeR Warrior highlights, but it's basically the AtonementSmite dying montage.
Yes, more or less. That's what this game pretty much was for GunTeR Warrior. Even in this play, I believe he hit Atonement early on. He's going to loop back around and immediately, you guessed it, kill Atonement. It's that easy for the boy. I mean, every single through space and time was incredible. That was a triple portal in the late game. This snipe, because, of course, like, that's not even what you're supposed to be using through space and time for.
I just realized Atonement nearly dashed into that one as well.
Probably consider himself lucky that he didn't. This one, I don't even know that he doesn't have vision anymore on Atonement. That just clips him. That's easy, dude. That's easy plays for GunTeR Warrior. It's that simple. And also, Freecs T1, if you let GunTeR Warrior play Janus again, then you are also trolling, and you'll be hearing from Vinny.
At this point, we might have to just consider it that way, Aggro, because...
Seriously, I mean, it's like not even trying to win if you give GunTeR Janus.